it's 6 p.m., so let's go get started. This meeting is being recorded. Did it say that? Did they have the thing that said recording? Okay. This meeting is being recorded by the Ways and Means Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. In accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20G, no person shall address a meeting of a public body without permission of the chair.
No.
Chris, you muted yourself. Muting you. No, I didn't ask you to unmute.
And all persons at the request of the chair. No person shall disrupt proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting. And if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. Okay, roll call. Councilor Forgy. See, you here. Right. Councilor Forgy just nodded. She's here. Councilor Toronzo.
I'm here.
Councilor Golub.
Here.
Councilor Bottomley.
Here.
And Councilor DeSorger is here. So we have minutes to approve, 2 sets of minutes from October 17th and November 14th.
So moved. Second?
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes?
Aye.
Okay, that's, all right, any abstentions? No. Any noes? No. Okay, so it's 5-0, approve the meeting minutes. Onward. Order number FY 24-027. Upon recommendation, the City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Rita Gardner, an order to transfer 1,500,000, oh, excuse me. I skipped over one thing first. I had public comment before that. I was so ready to get into the work of this that I neglected public comment, which is number 4. Does anybody from the public wish to say anything at this time? If so, you can unmute and speak because there's no one else that's here present. I see one other person that's on the phone. Can you speak up a little bit?
I'm trying. Can you hear me?
Yes. And you are?
Stephanie Duclos.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay? I'm
Yep.
trying to have it on. I just had something about common.
No. Can't really.
It's a little garbled. We're not getting what you're saying, Stephanie.
Sounds like you're underwater.
Okay, hold on.
Nope.
Now we don't hear
I
anything.
don't hear nothing. Yeah, anything. Why did I just say nothing?
Hello?
Yes. Hi. Can hear you now.
Okay. I took you off the
much
Bluetooth.
better.
There you go.
I took you off the Bluetooth.
Okay.
So
Very good.
I did have a concern about the legal,
Okay.
the summary. I had asked for maybe more itemized listing of justification for the attorney / legal. Is there 2 accounts? And if so, there was some confusion about the amounts, that we had money in there at one point, we don't have money in there at another point, and I'm hoping that some resolution happens before we make those transfers, and that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I don't see anyone else online. I'm gonna go forward, public hearing, there is none. Motions. Order number FY 24-027. The City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Rita Gardner, in order to transfer $1,500,000 from free cash to capital stabilization. Move that it be ordered that the City Council approves a transfer in the sum of $1,500,000 from free cash to capital stabilization. Majority vote required. And we have supporting documentation from this with our balances.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, oh, very good, thank you. So discussion on this.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I wonder why it's the practice to put the funds into capital stabilization as opposed to general stabilization? Why do we do that?
So I'm gonna take that, although Diana Schindler also may wish to speak to that, but we actually divide it into different things. We have, the capital stabilization. Every year there are capital projects. And you can have any number of stabilization accounts, any number of them. And we most frequently have been using stabilization and capital stabilization. We've made a commitment through our policies to keep a certain amount in stabilization. That's sort of like reserves, that in general, we don't take money from the regular stabilization. We did do that once this year, just a small amount, but we don't actually use that for the most part to be buying, trucks or whatever it is that's needed. The capital stabilization, I think, at least every year since I've been on, and for the many years watching before that, and Councilor Forgy or somebody else can speak to this, we actually always dip into the capital stabilization to purchase the things that are needed by different departments. And as a matter of fact, there are many municipalities that actually just have that set aside. They actually don't buy their things unless they have enough in their capital stabilization, which I think would be a great way to do things. To be saving that money so that we're anticipating what the needs would be. Now, I'm going to be silent now in case anybody else wants to speak to that, because I certainly don't feel like I'm the only authority on that. Anybody else need to say anything on this?
Thank you.
That-
Yeah.
So, the beginning balance right now in capital stabilization would be $1.5 million. It's, some over $1.5 million of the interest. And so we'd be up to 3, that would be great. So personally, I certainly think this is a great place to go with it, because there are things that are needed. Does anybody else have more to say on that?
I guess my only, one thing that I see, and then maybe this will change with our changing the possible schedule of where we're going to be voting on. Oh, there's somebody there. Of where we're, when, not where, but when we're going to be voting on our capital and our general spending is, correct me if I'm wrong, moving something from free cash only takes majority.
Right,
But moving it out of capital stabilization takes 2/3,
right.
right? So to me, I know we have to move the free cash before like a deadline, right? We got to do something with it. But I think it would almost make sense. I mean, there's, I don't know, 2 ways of thought going through my head about, do you put it in there ahead of time knowing that this is what you've got in the kitty to spend on capital extras, I guess you'd say? Or do you wait to put it in there when you see the need arise? Because it's easier to move the money in than it is to get it out. So if in the event we did need to tap into capital, I mean, most of the time, I think the council is going to recognize the need. It's going to be brought to us in a good need. So maybe this is just a moot point. But rather than having, if there is contention, having a simple majority rather than a super majority, I don't know. I have a little bit of apprehension of locking funds in too early to something that's harder to get it out of. That's all.
Where would you put it?
Well, it could stay in free cash.
Right.
For a certain period of time, till what, like
How long?
June? I think the end of June.
Well, yeah, you can't carry over free cash
Right.
at the end of a year. At the end of the
Okay.
fiscal year, it has to be recertified. I always thought kind of the opposite, that it was very good to have it be, like when it went into stabilization, it was like we really have to think about an expenditure.
Yeah.
So you had to convince 9 people that this was a very good idea to be buying
Right.
for this expenditure. That it was a very thoughtful procedure. So I know, if it's coming out of water or sewer enterprise, their retained earnings, it's a simple majority.
Right.
And I think it's a big deal, 9 votes, but our capital expenditures are a big thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what the difference, if there's any difference you can see what we earned in interest in the stabilization accounts, and I don't know if that's the same. If that's the same in free cash, if that earns the same amount of interest, but I actually liked the fact that it would be very thoughtful from the council you have to get 9 people to say, this really is worth that, or do you
Right.
want to spend so much on a rate finding, for example?
Right.
Like, you could probably convince the majority, but that's just my thought. Anybody else on that?
That was why I was kind of like, of 2 minds of it on,
I see what you mean.
and so that's why I was just questioning, like, with the timing of it. Like, we just got this free cash certified in October, right? So
Right.
we're 2 months in, we're throwing it somewhere. We're saying, we got to put this away. It's like, we got another.
We've always done that. And
Yeah.
and as you can see, we've always kept this sheet here that's talking about the stabilization. This is where the goal is to be on a stabilization is 3 to 5% of the operating budget. And the capital stabilization were things that we actually were generally spending on. But I do think that right after, there's always orders following the free cash for what accounts it's going to go
Right.
into. And you're actually also saying, we're going to put some into compensated absences or some of this. You're anticipating some of the things that you might have, but I feel like I'm monopolizing the conversation.
I'll share that I do appreciate having and have to have a 2/3 majority. I think that especially the fact that big capital expenditures have been some of the most contentious issues in recent years. I think that being able to bring together the supermajority of the council to support things, I think makes it more likely that the votes will represent the community. And also, Mike, I want to make sure you note that along this timing conversation, I'm going to submit language to Tammy tomorrow to change the code and charter and code changes so that in the hopes that we can push back the operating budget and be voting on the capital budget in the fall. So that we're doing operating first and then capital. And so that would mean after that June deadline.
Right.
Free cash.
It'd be, yeah, it's another big toss up. Like, we push it earlier in the fiscal year, or, what I mean? But it seems later in the calendar year, but it's early in the fiscal year. So it's,
Yeah.
But it doesn't cram it all into one, which
It
is.
doesn't.
Yeah.
And also, it doesn't cram it into one. I was also thinking we could do it right at capital right after, but that would make it summer. And I don't want folks to have to go through capital during the summer. So that's why the hope is the fall. But that's not written into the codes.
Any more discussion on this fiscal order? Okay.
Yeah, we kind of
I'm
got
going to take a vote on that. All those in favor of putting $1.5 million into capital stabilization, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We see Council Forgy voting in favor. She was a yes. All right. Order number FY. Oh, excuse me.
any abstention.
Any abstention? Any no's?
For that.
Okay, so 5-0 in favor of that. Okay. Order number FY, always remember that, FY 24-028. The city council, upon recommendation of Mayor Rita to transfer $466,000 from free cash to debt service. The city council moves that it be ordered that the city council approves a transfer in the sum of $466,000 from free cash to debt service to fund account lines principal paydown 0107100599991 in the amount of $277,000 and short-term interest 0100752059925 in the amount of $189,000. Majority vote required.
Second.
Oh, there you
You
go.
unmuted.
Am I muted or not?
No.
But I did say second.
You did.
We can hear ourselves speaking.
All right, discussion on this.
So
Okay.
how can I talk, I guess is the question.
Right now.
Go right now.
You
Go right
can
now.
talk, but just when you're done talking, mute yourself.
Okay, got it.
Also, I'm sorry, Mike, you guys could be on mute while she talks.
What?
Oh, do you hear an echo? When
We do,
when
we
talk?
do. I don't know if Council Forgy does, but I do hear it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councilor Forgy.
Thank you. Okay, I'm in favor of this. The reasons are many, but I will say that when we did our annual budget, we did cut from the line items that were needed to pay down the short-term debt. So I think, it's a good use of free cash. Pay down debt is a good way to use this cash. So I'm going to vote in favor of it. Thank you.
We're back.
Thanks.
So, anybody else? I had a comment on this, but I want to go to anyone else first. Pay down last year was $120,000 we budgeted for. So, have we paid anything down thus far this year? That's my question for Director Schindler.
That's a good question. I don't have that in front of me, but we have, I don't think that we do that until we're ready to go in February. Back out. What we would do is pay down, and then we want to go to permanent bond with less. That's
Okay.
the point.
I'm in favor of this as well. I just note that at times we have voted to actually pay down and have not done that. So I would be looking at that and making sure that we're actually putting the money towards the pay down, because otherwise you're paying for it for a long time after. So I'm a yes. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that's unanimous, positive. Everybody, Council Forgy is nodding yes and waving yes, okay. Order number FY 24-029, the city council, upon recommendation of Mayor Rita Gardner, in order to transfer $199,993 from free cash to the opioids settlement stabilization fund. We've created, right? Moves that it be ordered that the city council approves a transfer in the sum of $199,993 from free cash to opioid settlement stabilization fund. Majority vote required. Is there a second?
Sure. Second that.
Okay, discussion on this? Okay, no discussion. No discussion. Okay, all those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Very good. So that's unanimous, positive. No abstentions and nobody saying no. Okay. All right. Order number FY 24-030. City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Rita Gardner, in order to transfer 100,000 from free cash to fiscal year 24 town attorney services, also known as legal. Move that it be ordered that the City Council approves the transfer in the amount of 100,000 from free cash to the town city attorney services. Majority vote required.
Second that.
Okay, now discussion. We had a question about this? Discussion, please.
We didn't have it last time, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't ready to go last time, essentially.
So last time, we had actually something that was an appropriation, and we didn't have the money.
So
The money was not there, as I recall. Could you go ahead
Yeah.
and speak on that, please?
I'm not remembering, we talked about this at the last meeting and I'm not recalling in as much detail as I brought to the conversation last time. I can't answer the question about the two accounts, so that may be after I'm complete, something that Director Schindler might answer. What, like the synopsis that I recall is that 90, I keep trying to read this and it's like, I can only see it sideways. My recollection is that we had approved $90,000, anyone correct me if I'm wrong, with $90,000 in the last year's budget. And an additional 5,000 was allocated to legal, and that the mayor basically spent that amount over the course of 2 months from August to October and depleted that line item in the budget. And that is why this request is coming forward, so that we have funding in the next months going forward.
And it was also so that we could, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't this hand in hand tied in with the motion we tabled
Yes,
about
it
a
is.
previous bill that's coming up
Because
later? We didn't have the money to pay it.
exactly, without allocating additional funds to this account, we couldn't pay the legal invoice that is from one of the next orders. I do wonder, I heard the question about, do we have two accounts? I'm not sure if that's something that Director Schindler, you would be able to answer. I don't
Do
know.
we have
if
like a
that's-
labor? We have
Sure.
labor attorney and
Yes. Go ahead, Director Schindler, please.
Yes, that's correct. We have two accounts, as you're noting. We have the general legal, which this is the one in front of you now. And then we have a labor, and which is primarily toward our personnel matters and collective bargaining.
Okay.
So that's actually a separate order, and that was reduced by 30,000 at the budget in the springtime, and so we're just asking for that money to be restored. But that's on I think on first reading tonight.
So could you say that again? We decreased which one by 30,000, Director Schindler, please?
labor.
The not this one, but the other one, the one for the labor
Okay.
at the budget. I think what Counselor Golub mentioned is correct, that it was reduced from 100. The current one we're speaking of tonight was that 100 originally reduced to 90. We did add some money we just basically did like a carry forward for the June bill. So we added money in, paid June's bill, and then now we've paid through, it's really only through September that we've paid. And now we have some money in the account, but we will need more to basically pay the rest of the year.
So I have a question about this. Have we spent a lot more thus far on legal with Doherty, Wallace, and Pillsbury than in years past? Because we didn't decrease this one by that much. Am I
We
correct?
spent, and we have spent, I don't think that that's where the the budget has gone a little bit off. It's not necessarily with Doherty. We've had varying amounts for them over the years because they're general counsel and they've been general counsel for many years. So it does fluctuate depending on the cases that you have. What was a considerable cost was a bill that actually came from Egan Flanagan, having to do with some public records that were around the Lund process. So that was one that was unanticipated, and that was a considerable amount. So I do not anticipate we'll have any of those bills in the second half of this fiscal year. I don't anticipate, but we do have, we will have other legal bills that have to be paid.
Assuming the one you're alluding to, Director Schindler, is the reclassification bill? Is that from September? That was for like 34 grand?
Yes.
Okay. Where was that originally put? If it was reclassified into this, it was just erroneously put in the wrong count?
Yes, I think that was just I just think we have it coded like that, but it is a legal bill. It should be in that account.
Sure.
But yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councilor Forgy, please, just, so we'll mute us.
I'm confused. So I hate to ask the same question over and over again, but I need a little clarification, please, on what exactly it belongs in 23, what belongs in 24, and what is the balance left in legal right now in 24? Thank you.
Sure, I can answer that. So there's, in legal today, we have about $8,551 left. And that's for FY 24. What you have in front of you tonight is a request just to add additional money in for FY 24. But you had also in front of you, and is tabled in front of you tonight, or to take off the table, is a $15,000 and some odd bill that was from FY 23 that I'm also asking to be paid out of FY 24's legal. So that's the prior year bill that everyone alluded to, that's was set aside previously, because there is only $8,500 in the account.
So if I understand correctly, then this $100,000, this request is going in to augment our current operating budget.
That's correct.
So what was our original budgeted amount? I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
90,000.
Okay, and all of that, with the exception of 8,000, has already been spent?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
There's just echoes galore.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Are there any other outstanding invoices from 2023 besides this $15,000?
No, or not to my knowledge. If anything were, it should have come to light at this point, and that's the only one that I'm aware of. I just for context, those were coming out of the chief of staff office in June and July. So you might remember, I think that was why we missed, that's about when I took over the end of July. So it was just, I think, in a transition time that we missed that bill.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna vote in, Councilor Forgy, go ahead.
One more time, sorry, gang. I was going to say that I'm going to vote for this because I cannot see how we can hamper the incoming administration by a lack of legal funding. However, it doesn't make me real happy to know that this budget was overspent midway through the year. So I'm wondering, what it is that we've spent it on. I know that once the debt is incurred, we owe it. However, I am going to vote yes for the transfer, but it doesn't make me happy to have to do that. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm with you.
Yep.
I think that was very well put. Thank you. Knowing that we have an outstanding bill of 15,000 from 2023, it's going to take 9 votes, okay? And we have $8,000 left in the budget. I'm going to vote for that to go in, but I'm looking at the expenditures also.
Did we use all of
Yeah.
23's legal as well?
Well,
Or did some of that get turned into free cash anyway?
well, it would have been, I don't know what happened at the end of that year.
Right.
Sometimes because we didn't actually get the breakdown yet.
Right.
But at any rate,
I was just saying, like, if it's,
yeah, so that bill came in late, so then and that happens sometimes.
Mhm.
It comes in right after the end of the fiscal year, so it takes 9 votes, but the fact of the matter is that we're that much over, and so, we have a home equity case going on, we have,
I was just curious as to whether
going
this was-
on, et cetera, and so those cases are costing us. Yes, Diana Schindler has her hand up. Go ahead, Diana.
I'm sorry, I did just want to clarify that. I did provide, I think in October's meeting, an end of year report, which did
Mhm.
show the final balances as of June 30th. And I believe there was money in legal. It wasn't
Okay.
like a huge amount, but I do believe if you go back and look, there was some left. So,
Thank you.
yeah, so that again, that bill should have been paid, but I missed it in the transition. So I apologize.
and that would have just turned into free cash anyway, right?
Right.
Right, what was left turned into free cash, correct?
So I was just trying to say, as far as that bill goes, I don't know, I don't remember what the amount was, if we had enough to necessarily cover it out of our 2023 budget, but it seems like at least part of it, if not all of it,
Mhm.
makes it not really.
Right.
But I still think we should, to agree with Counselor Forgy, I agree that we should be not have expended our entire year's budget in a couple months.
Okay. Further discussion. Let's take a vote on that then. All those in favor of this transfer? Aye. Okay, and I see Council 4G is an aye also as well. All right, order number FY 24-031. Oh, wait, I'm gonna go back to that. So there were no abstentions and there were no no's because all 5 of us voted yes on this. Okay. Order number FY 24-031. The City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Rita Gardner, in order pursuant to MGL Chapter 150E, Section 7, to approve the first year cost item for settled CBA. Move that it be ordered pursuant to MGL Chapter 150E, Section 7, that the City Council approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Greenfield and the Salary Schedule Employees Association and transfer from free cash the total sum of $43,600 to fund the first year cost to be allocated as follows. Licensing department wages. I am actually not going to read the numbers because this is not because we're not officially.
Right.
Okay. 2,200. Planning department wages, 1,600. Building inspection wages, 12,500. Council on Aging wages, 5,100. Veterans wages, 5,800. Library wages, 3,600. And recreation wages, 12,800, for a total of $43,600. Is there a second?
Sure. Second.
Okay, so I have a question for building inspection wages and recreation wages. Those are just contract with there's not, let me just think, one, two, there's 4 employees in building inspections and 3 employees in recreation, and those are just the memorandum of understanding. Is that correct, Diana Schindler?
That's correct.
Okay,
In the salary schedule unit,
yeah,
which seems unusual, we do have the recreation director and the building commissioner. So they're both in those units. So they are paid as, a higher salary like department heads, like many NRs. So that's one of the reasons why that you're seeing that high amount.
okay. Further discussion on this? None? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
That'll be 5 yeses. I see Council Forgy there. We're all saying aye, so there's any no's, no abstentions. Okay. All right. Order number FY 24-040, the City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Weidergarten, in order to rescind the library borrowing authority, move that it be ordered a vote to rescind the borrowing authorization for the Greenfield Public Library building project by the amount of $500,000. Revised authorization will be $18,041,296.
Second that.
Okay, discussion. So how many of the MBLC, are we still waiting on one payment from MBLC? The last payment,
Mhm.
That's correct.
the Library Association, Mass Board of Library Associations.
Mhm.
But, and after that, will that authorization change? Because are we just gonna keep that as a revised? Will we ever be changing the revised authorization, I guess would be my question.
Every time that I have money available to bring forward, I plan to reduce the authorization. So I'm waiting for a commitment from MBLC about we have on hand 7.5 million. But because we technically don't have a permanent CO to have closed the project, the Mass Library, the MLBC, would prefer that we do not reduce the authorization until we receive that final grant payment. So I anticipate that. I was hopeful to have it by June 30th, but now that the project is continuing, or we haven't gotten the CO, I anticipated any day, it could go as late as October. So, but as soon as we can, I want to reduce the authorization. When I get the next payment from the foundation, which they are telling me should be by early February and will be about another 100 or 250, I will come back and reduce the authorization by 250. So I feel that we need to have the authorizations. It just helps us to have less authorizations on the books when we go to bonding, and just in general. So, and the library budget we plan to actually bond is closer to 12 million, not the 19 million that we've actually spent on the library. So, so yeah, we will continue to have the rescissions.
Was 12 million, not 10? Huh. Okay, and the CO, we're waiting on the what? The CO?
Right, a permanent certificate of occupancy. We have a temporary CO, but we had a punch list that had some items on it that the building commissioner was still waiting to finalize. So I met with him today and it's very close now. So we're hoping any time now we'll be closing that up.
Okay, and they've been responsive to getting those last things done?
We just had a meeting, I think week before last with the designer at P3 and Dan Pilata the OPM. And so they took the final list off to DA Sullivan and to the other folks. So yes, we did have a delay or sort of a time where they, after the library opened, that there was a little bit of distance between the project managers and whatnot until we finally got everybody back to the table recently. And that's been a push from my office because obviously we're trying to close up the money. So.
Okay. All right, further discussion on this? Appearing to be none, let's take a vote then. All those in favor of, all right, okay, I see five, that's 5 yeses, and that would mean there's no noes and no abstentions. Okay. Order number FY 24-046. City Council moved that it be ordered that the Ways and Means Committee take from the table order number FY 24-017 to approve the payment of the prior year invoices from 6/9/23 for Doherty, Walls, Pillsbury, and Murphy in the amount of $15,038.75 to be paid from fiscal year 24 legal town city, account number 010015105302, which was tabled at the November 14th, 2023 Ways and Means Committee meeting. Majority vote required. Second.
Second, yeah.
Okay, so I heard a second. So, tomorrow night will be, so I think, I don't know if we tabled this at committee or not, but we have to take it from the table. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes.
I wasn't at the November meeting. What was the initial reason that it was tabled? Thank you.
Actually, it was tabled because we had $8,000 in the account. And so the bill is 15,000. And so we needed to table this because there wasn't enough money in that account. So,
This was that financial order we just voted on a little while ago, part of that.
yeah. So we needed to put that 100,000, we needed to put that 100,000 in the account so that this bill could be paid. So I guess the first part of that, and I'm not sure actually, but I'm going to go along as if this is standard operating procedure. We're going to take, does everybody agree that we can take this from the table to talk about it tonight?
Yep.
Yes, is that all of you? Yes, okay. And so, so now, your thoughts on this overdue bill? Anybody have any discussion about whether or not we should be paying this bill that of 15,000 that was owed in 2023?
You know me, and paying debts.
Okay,
I'll just second what Councillor Forgy said. I mean, Councillor Forgy didn't say it specifically about this, but just seconding all of that, and of course, we have to pay it.
I just wanted to confirm with everybody, did we get more complete records than what's shown on here? About what 15,000 was spent? But I agree, we have to pay our bills, but I didn't see any. I mean, what I see here is $50 accounting for. I'm just wondering if it's been a while now, but I don't remember seeing, maybe I could have missed it.
so I'm going to say this. I have this paper here.
Mm-hmm.
My next paper that I have is from, and so that was June. It is a June 6th bill. June 9th, 2023. So I certainly can see why anything that comes in June with the year ending June 30th, I can see why it ended up being a prior year's bill. I'm looking at this part here, okay, that you're looking at.
Yeah.
And I see what you're saying. I see the $50.
$50.
Okay, and then, but when I turn the paper over, okay,
Mm-hmm.
when I turn the paper over, I see things that are dated October
Mhm.
and August and September.
Mhm.
So I think that that is a very valid question,
Yeah.
okay? So it doesn't, I don't see clearly I don't see clearly, we have our breakdown. I think if I'm expressing what you were just trying to say, Counselor Bottomley, I don't see this. I see all these things that are dated afterwards.
Thank
you for
the question.
So that's a really good question. So that's for Director Schindler. I think we should pay them what we owe them. Now, what I see that we owe them is $50. So that's for Director Schindler before we have a vote.
Oh, Counselor Forgy.
Oh, and Counselor Forgy has her hand up also. Go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you. So Ginny, you're telling me that there's a second page to this with additional charges that were incurred during this fiscal year, 24?
No, but the last page,
The last page is a breakdown of what's been spent in 24, fiscal 24.
the very
I don't have that page.
page 28 of our agenda. But what I'm saying to you is are all in fiscal year 24. They're October.
Counselor Forgy, can you mute yourself? Thank you.
Okay. So this page here has town attorney services. It says 11,000, mayor's office legal, GMTA easement, solar pilot, preservation restrictions, CPA, public records appeal, but it was dated October 12th, 2023, which actually is in fiscal year 24.
Right, it's back up for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is.
So it's back, well, that was very concise. This is not my MO.
Right.
There you go.
Right, and it's the same backup that we had last month as well. I just looked back at our agenda then too to confirm that it's the same backup that only has a $50 invoice.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
So maybe we won't be paying this. I mean, if it's, I can't,
Not now.
I mean, without knowing that the invoice exists.
yeah. Director Schindler, do you have anything more on this that would tell us? It is a prior year bill, but the prior year bill that we have actually says $50.
Yeah, I am looking at it right now. So I do, I have a couple different things that I prepared. Had prepared something for Counselor Golub. She just asked for a summary. So that might be what you're looking at. I'm not sure exactly what you're looking at, but I think the total is a combination of several different invoices, all from Doherty, but they have been putting them in separate, like, I think it's a total. They often, they've been doing work on different things, like there's the mayor's office gets a bill that's for like the general legal. Then if there's a case, they'll give us a bill for the case. They did the GMTA sale. I think they did that on a separate invoice. So anything they think that we might want to see separately, or we might have separate funding, oftentimes they'll put on a different invoice. So I think it's a combination of them, and I don't have them right in front of me. So I'll have to put that together and get it for you for tomorrow night. But I know I do have a copy of the general June invoice for the mayor's office, but I don't have the other 2 or 3 that I think make up that total 15.
It sounds like there's some disconnect between what we're trying to communicate and the response, meaning it could be that it makes total sense that the June 9th, 2023 invoice is for various tasks or conversations with legal. But what's going on here in the agenda is that the next 2 supporting documents don't seem to relate. One is just for $50 from the same date, And then the other document, which I'm looking at and trying to see, oh, do some of these add up? But I don't know, I don't see that they add up, and also the dates don't sync. These dates are from August 9th through October 12th. So I do appreciate the email to me. I think that I think the sense that I'm getting from the committee is that in order to feel confident voting on this, the supporting documentation would need to be in the packet, right?
Okay, I'm sorry. I just went and looked at your agenda because I wasn't quite sure what you were referring to. So in the agenda packet, the reason you're not seeing the invoice that I'm looking at that I just said from Doherty is because it's the same reason why we haven't been publishing the invoices, because they're confidential. They have confidential information, and our attorney now has told us that those should be held confidential. So the counselors can see them, but the public cannot unless they're redacted. So we did send you the unredacted copies that were the backup for this. The only public copy we published was the $50 one. But the other ones, Tammy, originally when you had this on your agenda in October, we had sent you out the unredacted copies for the backup. But I don't know where they are now or how you received them then. But I know that they were provided then. So that's the explanation.
A question in response to that. Why would an invoice that looks just like this be confidential? Because
Right.
this isn't,
Good question.
we're not requesting in this conversation. I did request that by email, what the funds were used for, but right now I don't think that that's the question. We're just not seeing even the invoice, and I don't see why that would need to be held confidential.
It wouldn't have to be. We can redact it. But at the time, I asked you if you guys wanted it to be redacted or whether you wanted to actually see it. And so I provided it to the council, to the clerk staff, to Tammy, and I understood that she was going to send it out in confidential mode because you wanted to see the detail of it. You asked me the same question then. I gave you a summary, and you, I think at the time said people wanted to see the detail. It might not have been you, Counselor Golub, but people did want to see the detail. So my understanding was at that time it was sent out to you by the clerk's office, but I will follow up to ensure that, but that's my recollection.
Counselor Forgy, let's mute us and.
Thank you. So I guess I would like, before this comes off the table tomorrow night, I would like some clarification on what amount are we voting on or recommending to be voted on? If it is for the larger total, the one that's different than the $50, then I need to know, before I can vote on them, if, as you say, the invoices are in October and November, I would like to know if those were bills that were incurred, if the information that was requested from legal was requested before June 30th. I just want to know when the expenditure was incurred. That's what I want to know.
Counselor Go.
And I really appreciate the information that you sent me back before the last meeting, Director Schindler, and you did do that, and I am grateful for that. And just a request, and I feel like I'm echoing something that Councilor Toronzo might have asked for in a recent meeting, but the more that this, like, to really keep remembering that we are volunteers and the expectation that we would recall all the information from a month ago. I would also share that hope, but given that we have jobs and kids that are volunteering, the conversations will be greatly facilitated by including the information in the packets, even if it was previously sent the month before in an email. So I just thank you in advance for anything that you can do to help the next Ways and Means Committee coming forward, especially as so many people will be learning and will be brand new to this. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. I think just working, I should have noted when the agenda came out and contacted the clerk's office and made sure she was resending the, original documents as well. So I'll note that for future.
I
Thank you.
am seeing, I just pulled back up said invoice that was sent to us, totaling $14,988.75, which would be this amount minus $50, right? What this has on here, yes, is itemized as far as, I guess, what they did. But, and I know that that was requested because we were, for good reason, curious as to where all this money's going. But like, I think like you said, like this could easily have been redacted. I mean, and it could have looked just like the other June 9th bill that we were just looking at for $50, where it said like phone call, 0.2 hours, and it cost us, whatever, like $50, right? A fifth of their $250 an hour thing. Whereas here, it literally has all that. It has, a thing on X, I won't disclose it, but on such and such date in May, 3.2 hours at the rate of $250 for $800. And it does have a description of services, which I understand some of these might need to be redacted, even though they're kind of just general. Like one literally says review letter. That doesn't, I don't think that's confidential information, but something like this is a lot. Yeah.
So how many pages is that?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, even the summary at the bottom would have been enough because it has a person recap page and it has the amount of time each one of the attorneys, how many hours and how much the breakdown of the payment was. That would have even been, that could be the easiest part right there. That has nothing to redact. It just says which attorney spent how many hours at their rate of pay and the amount.
Were the rates of pay all the same?
All but one. One of them is paid a little bit less
Okay,
than the other three.
right. I don't recall that.
But it was a confidential email it was combined. It was like a non-financial order and a financial order together.
So that should be sent, I think, actually, I'm just gonna say this,
And it expires January 18th because we only have so much time to look at a confidential email.
so, and what date,
It was sent on October 20th to us.
that should come again? Do you think people will want to? see
People
that
want
yet?
to see it.
Do you-
They're voting.
Do you want to wait to vote on it? Or what is the consensus here? You can see it, but other than passing the phone around.
Right. I mean, I can do that if you want. But I mean, Chris can't see it, but I mean, if you look back at your October 20th email.
I haven't found it, but I do want to say we're a little bit off course right now. I think a large part of the conversation we're having right now belongs on council floor. I think we just have to give our recommendation as to whether we want it to be pulled off the table, and then this conversation can happen at that point. Just my opinion. Thank you very much.
It's great, okay.
I mean, I think we can see it. We should pay it. I mean, it does exist.
You see it?
My preference is to have this all in the packet, and I'm okay with us not taking the next time up in the next Ways and Means meeting.
Okay, so,
Well, can I make a request?
Yeah.
Can this be sent? Can the fourth page of that be resent before tomorrow's meeting? Because as I said, looking at that, there's nothing confidential about the amount of time that an attorney worked for us. Would that be possible? Director Schindler?
I'm sorry, I just stepped away for a minute. I just came back. Could you ask me that again, please?
So page 4 of this, I found the invoice you were talking about.
Yes.
And page 4 of it, I think could be resent in the packet for everyone tomorrow because it doesn't have anything other than the person recap for the amount of time each lawyer spent in this June 9th invoice, which totaled $14,988.75. There's nothing personal or protected about who worked how many hours.
No,
right?
of course not. No, that could be reproduced.
I'm just thinking it could be streamlined.
Yeah, or distributed. Yeah, I mean, of course, and I did hear your conversation about that and sort of about the details about what should or shouldn't be redacted. And some of that we just, we don't use our discretion. We rely
Right.
on counsel, and every time we have to do that, that costs money. So that's why I just thought it does make sense to, if we have a way to confidentially release these to the council. If the public asks for them, we will release them, but we will redact them appropriately then. But if we can give them to the council unredacted, I also think it is, you're part of the city's legal team and you should have access to those and that information. But to answer your question, yes, for the public packet, we can just have the bottom portion with the hours listed.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think we've discussed this heartily. Shall we take a vote on paying this, on our committee's recommendation?
Do you take it from the table?
Well, no, we
already took it from the
we took it from the table. We agreed to take it from the table. Now, what we want to say as our report for tomorrow, to say to the city council, how many of you, if you wish to give the nod, if you wish yes, to say, yes, we should pay this, you may raise your hand and say aye.
Begrudgingly or yes?
I don't like the process, but
4 of you
Okay.
said yes. Okay? All right. I'm going to abstain because it's not in front of me. Okay? And so there's 1, and there are no no's because that makes 5. I'm really good at this. Okay. So, yes. So we'll be sending a positive recommendation with 1 abstention because I'd like to be seeing what I'm saying, what I'm voting on, because the thing I have is not there. Okay. So that concludes that. All right. So that's all the things that we have in front of us for now. I do want to say one thing before we end. I had a letter. Okay, so that's all for whatever. Promotions. I had a letter from Director Schindler about capital improvements. And they're trying to get that committee together in January, and they have a couple of dates picked out. Can you say something about that, Director Schindler?
Sure. As I think we had a discussion on a previous Ways and Means meeting, but we are still bound by our charter to get capital planning underway. And so we picked out some dates in January to proceed with that. And so we have, during those meetings, what we typically do is meet with department heads, and we have a handful of them that would come and meet with us. We usually do that on 2, maybe 3 days, depending on how long we want to go. And then, within a week, couple weeks after that, the committee comes back together, discusses anything, asks additional questions if necessary, and then they vote and make those recommendations to the mayor. And those all have to be wrapped up by charter timeline by March 1st. So we are under a pretty tight time frame to get that done in this year, but we're ready to go. And all the materials have been submitted, and we're just ready to get underway with the department head meetings.
Which there is the possibility that with whoever's going to be doing that, Director Schindler, that meeting, those meetings may have to be in the evening.
We haven't done that, or we didn't do that last year. I've only been here, I was only here, caught the tail end of the meetings last year. They were during the day, but of course I presume they could be during the evening times. We'd have to be able to do that at the department head availability, but I'm sure they're available.
Okay. So just so everyone here knows that,
Okay.
knows that this would be happening, that the there are the other two committee members. There's somebody from planning and construction and someone who was appointed by the school committee. And then there's a third person from this that needs to be doing that. So I actually want to I couldn't share that email that she sent to me because I have to go back to the clerk to go out to everybody, so there's no open meeting law violation. That's why I brought it up to say it now. So that needs to be happening and we'll take it from there, okay?
Yeah, and I'll share that the new code language that I'm proposing slightly changes the configuration of the capital improvement committee.
Mhm.
Would it be appropriate for me to share that now, or is that,
I
not sure?
don't know that
Okay.
that would be correct,
Yeah.
because that would be like.
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I just have a concern about when, I know there are time constraints, but the swearing in isn't even happening until January 2nd. I'm a little concerned about there's such a change in council, and those meetings are really important for someone on Ways and Means to be there, and I'm not sure how fast that turnaround can be, and I'm not sure how we can have the communication since we won't have a chair of Ways and Means for an undetermined time. That all has to be put together, and I'm not sure how we can have that committee function if there's no one from Ways and Means involved in that.
Mhm.
That's a problem, very problematic.
Right, so it could be that was happening. I just wanted to say that the dates that I had gotten were January 4th and 11th, and I saw that as a non-starter because of just what you were saying.
Yeah, that just.
So I think it was, more reasonable that timeline be pushed up. But so that will be to all of you. And, like we were talking anyways, it actually says the recommendations, that committee needs to make recommendations. It's not when they need to be acted upon. So it's not really the be all and the end all. What is specified in the charter is when city council, when you need to act on your operating budget. It's not specified when you need to act on your capital.
Mhm.
It's specified when that needs to get, when things need to be submitted, but not when it needs to. And one thing has to happen prior to the other. So I think it has to be by March 1. Right?
Yeah.
So that gives you a little bit more, but I just wanted to bring that up. So we didn't have it on the agenda, so we shouldn't talk forever about it, but you are aware that that's.
But the charter language is only when it has to be submitted, like the mayor's budget has to be submitted by March 1st, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So it might just be a little bit of crunch time in February.
Yeah. Can be done.
It's 28 days.
With February vacation,
Yeah.
with February vacation, so it might want to be scheduled later in January. Like if you get together. Go ahead. Would you?
Yeah, maybe, well, obviously, there's three of you that are going to continue with the council. And I don't know what different committees people are going to be on, but if there is someone sitting in the room this evening that would like to continue to be that liaison before everything is put together technically, I'm just throwing out there a suggestion just to get the work going and everything else. Anyway, it doesn't need to be the chair of Ways and Means. I think it could be the designee from the chair as well. So if there is something that needs to happen quickly, perhaps one of you folks that are remaining on the council can come up with a solution.
Making people aware of the problem, and as always, you put it very succinctly. Thank you. All right. That's all I have to say. I'll take that.
Motion to
Adjourn. Second adjourn. So somebody, okay, and second, all those in favor of adjourning?
Hey.
Okay. All right.